Hey guys, welcome back to another late night in the tackle room here at Intuitive Angling. Much appreciate you guys making some time out of your day to watch the video. And if you guys watch the channel very much here, you hear me talk about water clarity and water temperature a lot. I mean, I bring it up constantly in these fishing tips I give because they are, in my opinion, the two most important things in bass fishing as far as how to catch and locate and figure out how to catch the bass. If you can blindfold me and set me down on any lake in the country, put me out in the middle of the lake and say, Randy, here's the water temperature, the water clarity, and I have a good idea what I need to do to catch bass. That's all you need to know. So today what I'm going to talk about is water clarity as it pertains to the summer. And then if I talked about water clarity for all 4 seasons, this would take 5 hours to do this video, so we'll do those at a later point, but we'll talk about summer water clarity here. I think it's going to really help you guys out quite a bit. Real quick, just want to give our weekly reminder. If you guys are interested in one of our lake map breakdowns we're doing at Fish the Moment, I'll include the link in the description. We have got lake map breakdowns with Fish the Moment all over the country. Myself, Matt Steffen, Johnny Schultz are building them. We do personal breakdowns. We can build a lake map breakdown personally for you, or we have a big catalog of them up. I'll include the link in the description. It's a great way to help everybody out here. Okay guys, let's get into this a little bit. What you have in most lakes, excuse me, doesn't matter if they're man-made lakes or even some natural lakes, is you've got a sort of a diversity in water clarities. And for the most part, a lot of guys fish man-made and poundless here, so we'll sort of gear that to that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that because natural lakes can fall in the same category. You've got different gradients around the lake that have a range of clarity. For example, you guys know I fish Table Rock Lake a lot. It's a highland impoundment known as a Clearwater Lake, although it isn't near as clear as what it used to be because it's so polluted anymore the last 10 years that it's becoming a stained water lake. That's another story for another video. But the point is if you go up the river arms this time of year, you can find 12 inches of water visibility. And then if you go down the lower end of the lake, you might get 6 to 8 foot of visibility depending upon different type of conditions, and you have everything in between that foot to 6 foot visibility. This is typical in most lakes across the country that you have those extremes like that. So specifically what I want to talk about for summertime fishing, I want to break down some techniques to use in dirty water, stained water, and the clear water parts of the lake. And we'll start out with the dirty water areas. For the most part, you're going to find the dirtiest water in your lake on the upper creek arms, upper river arms. Shallow, flat water, those areas that get more nutrient, more sediment, more runoff in them. River arms for the most part. In that situation, if you have under 2 foot water visibility, that's going to put a lot of fish in less than 5 foot of water, and you're not going to have hardly any fish suspended. You're going to have these fish that are relating to the bottom in shallow water. So under that set of circumstances, right off the bat, if you're in dirty, stained water, you can fish those techniques that produce like that. Shallow square bill cranking, shallow crankbaits, spinner baits, chatterbaits, swim jigs, pitching and flipping, jigs and soft plastic lures, excuse me, that type of stuff, gearing towards those visible targets. So that gives you narrows it down quite a bit with that. Now, as you move down the lake, for example, and you start to get out of the river arms, you start to get more out to the mouth of the creeks, you'll notice water clarity changes. You got different changes in the bank angles, and the water clarities also change. So once you start getting, let's say, in the mid part of the lake, if you got a 12 inches of visibility up in the rivers, by the time you're down in the mid part of the lake, you may have 3 to 4 foot of visibility, say 3 foot of visibility. Now, when you're talking about 3 foot of visibility, that begins to spread the fish out a little bit more. That will put some fish shallow under certain conditions. There'll be some fish at the mid depth range. There'll be fish using the water down to 20 feet or so, and some fish may even be slightly suspending a little bit. So once you start getting into that water clarity of that, say that 2 to 4 foot range, mid part of the lake, that's when the conditions become more important. Now, if you were up the river, conditions aren't that important, weather conditions, because those fish live shallow. But if you're in the mid part of the lake, For example, early in the morning, late in the evening, you may have to capitalize on it. There may be some type of a topwater bite, if there's some shade on the water. And then after that, you might move out to some main lake or secondary points in 5 to 15 foot of water. You might catch some fish on a big plastic worm or crankbait along those type of lines. There may even be some fish schooling a little bit. But for the most part, instead of having all those fish in less than 5 foot of water, because like they are up the river in the dirty water, as you get into that more cleaner water, you're going to have those fish use a wider diversity of depths, and so it becomes a little bit more complicated to actually locate the fish. Now, as you get down the lake and you start to get into the clear water environments, the cleanest water on the lake, that's when you have even more variables going on with the weather, because you still have some fish that are living shallow, even in that clear water in the summertime of the year. You have some fish that are deep, depending upon if and how deep the thermocline is. And then you start to have a tremendously noticeable difference in how many suspended fish are in the lake. If you have a lake that has water visibility of over 4 foot, and you have a good shad population in that lake, you're going to have probably half the bass out there roaming around suspended in various water depths in the middle of the lake. They can be not even relating to any type of structures. They can just be following shad or herring or whatever out in the middle of the lake. And then you'll also have some of those fish that are just on the bottom in deep water, like on drop-offs or breaks or rock piles. And then you've got a portion of those fish that will live shallow, that are maybe just perch feeders. They live shallow, they take advantage of whatever shallow cover is available. So in a clear water environment, the conditions become even more important. The weather conditions really dictate your techniques a lot more in clear water than they do even in stained or dirty water. So for example, if you have a cloudy, rainy day, or if you've got low light conditions, that's when those fish in clear water will really make a move shallow. Now, a lot of these fish that are living in 20-25 foot of water during the daytime, at night they pull up and feed shallow. They'll move right on the bank and chase crawdads, looking for crawdad shallow or whatever. And a lot of times you can catch those fish that were night feeding early in the morning before the sun comes up. And that's why clear water, topwater fishing is so good in the summertime of the year. That usually lasts up until the sun gets off the water, with the exception if it's super clear. If you've got like over 6 foot of visibility, guys, a lot of times in the summertime of the year, you can pull those fish off the bottom on a topwater lure all day long if it's not very windy out. Because if you got a fish sitting on a rock pile in 20 foot of water and the water visibility is 6 to 8 foot, they will come off of that 20 foot of water to hit that top water in a second. Because 20 foot, it sounds deep. Like somebody says, well, I'm fishing 20 foot, you think, well, that's fishing deep. That's not. That's basically as long as your boat is. So it's not that deep, and it's not that hard for those fish to come out of that deep water and hit a top water. And they will do that in clear water in the summertime of the year. But then again, like I said, you can still catch them on the hard structures like your rock piles, brush piles, and drop-offs during the day. The thing in clear water environment, as far as on the lower end of the lake, that you really have to take to capitalize on is those suspended fish. The suspended fish suspend at a different range depending upon the cover available in the lake. If you've got a lake, for example, like Lake Lanier in Georgia, you may have a lot of bass suspended over the top of submerged treetops, maybe 30-40 foot down over deeper water. If you've got a lake like Lake Hartwell in South Carolina that has a lot of blueback herring, they may be relating to the cane piles and chasing herring up on the bank and up on the surface and busting the surface, just roaming everywhere. And that is unfortunately when the guys with live scope really can dominate. When they can get out there and they can stay on those suspended fish and follow them, that's when that technique shines more than any other time. But not necessarily, that's not the only way to catch them. So anyway, guys, that's just an overview of some water clarity patterns that you can pursue based upon how clear the water is. That's a real broad overview. There's so many details that I can go into beyond that, but for time's sake, I know you guys don't have all day to listen to me talk. The main thing, guys, is the overview of what I'm talking about is fish shallow if the water's dirty, fish mid depths if the water is stained, and look for those suspended fish if the water's super clear, and really let the weather conditions, sky conditions, wind dictate your technique. So hope that helps out. Hope it gets you guys started anyway. Feel free to shoot me some messages, comments, questions. I'll be happy to answer them, and we'll talk to you guys later. See you.